Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. It's a super mini mail call episode. Let's jump right into it. This package here comes from Ezra in Utah. Hi to all my Utah viewers. This package has been here in the basement for a number of months. Sorry about that, Ezra. Looks like we have a note inside. We'll look at that in just a moment. We got a box. We have another box. And there's some candy in here. If anyone sends any sweets to me, please write on the outside of the box, like sweets within or candy within. That way I won't let it sit in the basement for months and months and months in case the candy goes bad. I'm sure this is completely fine. This looks like maybe some local Utah snacks. It's not very hot in the basement. It's always about 70 degrees or what, like 20, 21 degrees Celsius down here. So it's pretty constant, meaning food and stuff stays preserved pretty well down here. But just in case there's anything that like is really perishable, just put candy on there, and that way I'll prioritize the box. Maybe that's like a little hack. If you send something in the mail call and you want me to open it sooner, if you put some candy in there, you write on the outside of the box, then I'll try to prioritize it, as opposed to Ezra's package here, which sat around for a while. The message from Ezra reads, here's the book 8080 I emailed you about. The seller did a great job and replaced it. I also hope you enjoy my daughter's favorite low snacks. Ezra's daughter must be diabetic like me, as in needing some candy to bring the blood sugar up. It's from a local convenience store. Thanks for your videos, Ezra. So indeed, we got some snacks here, and sour squirmers and peach wheelies. That's pretty cool. I don't need any blood sugar raisers right now, or anything to raise my blood sugar, so I won't eat these at the moment, but I will definitely eat these when the time is ready. And there's a best before date, and it's April 2024, so it's still January, so we're still good with those ones. And these ones here are May 2024, so yeah, we're good as well. This one says it is a product of Mexico. Oh, as does this. But it's made by a company out of Salt Lake City, Utah. So they're local, but imported at the same time. So let's look at the contents of what was sent in. So this was in the bottom of the box. This is a CRT-C controller, so a 6845 or the Hitachi version right there. I'm not sure if the book 8088 uses one of these. So the background here, and I remember the email I got from Ezra, was that this is a book 8088. And there was like a little bit of time when everyone was talking about these things and was like all the hotness. I never picked up one of these because I thought, they're just kind of, I don't know, they're kind of silly. And it was made by a seller on AliExpress, and Ezra bought one of these, and Ezra told me that it didn't work. I don't remember what was wrong with it, but let's just crack it open and take a look. Yeah, there it is. So it's a laptop, but this one, I guess, sports an 8088, so it's not any faster than that. Now, it has a card slot, if I recall. There's two versions of this. There's another one that has a 36SX, if I recall. And it's more like a little handheld. It has a little BlackBerry style keyboard and a little LCD screen. And this one obviously is a bit more like a laptop. I haven't actually really, I watched the videos about this thing when this was the hotness and everyone was talking about it. But it has these little compartments here. So it looks like that is the BIOS, the CPU, and the math coprocessor on that side. And on this side, we have some kind of storage, I'm assuming. Oh no, that's OPL3. Ah, sweet. All right, so it's got a little sound card as well. And inside of this thing, from my understanding, it is just very commodity hardware. Like there's some kind of chipset that was floating around and it's been put into a board and into a laptop chassis with a somewhat low quality LCD screen, OPL3 sticker, 8088 processor, color graphics adapter, MS-DOS sticker. I don't know if any of that stuff was on there originally. A little keyboard here, which feels keyboardy. What else do we have on here? Okay, so I guess that's the power switch. We have another compartment, which pops off. Got some more ICs. You can see through the case, it's actually clear, so there's some like larger packages there. And it does have a lithium-ion battery in there. Okay. Now these chips here, they're like really difficult to read. All right, there it is. So NEC, so that's just one of the chips to run the computer. an 8288. Is that like a timing or clock chip or something like that? Or maybe it's this one here, the 8284. I can never remember. This says CGA, and yeah, it's a BIOS chip, I guess. There's the CRTC, so there was the extra one right here for whatever reason. And this is some RAM, I take it. It's very difficult for me to make out the part number. Yeah, 256, so this is SRAM right here. What do these silkscreen markings say? Oh, it shows the memory map? Okay. It's pretty cute. We can kind of see through the plastic there that we got something going on, and there it is. There's 4,000 milliamp hours for the battery. It looks like some RAM there, and there's actually a compact flash card in there. That's pretty cool. And yeah, it's supposed to be like chipset related stuff. We have a USB port there, and CF change, and like a picture of a tube of toothpaste. What? I don't get that. I don't get that at all. Let's see. I'm gonna try to pop this card out of here. To use a little spudger. There's no obvious eject button there, but these CF cards have a little lip on them, so you can use that to get the card out. So there it is, 512 megabytes. I bought some of these before from AliExpress, like this exact, well, they look exactly like this, and they've always worked quite well for me, actually, so no complaints. We'll just leave that out for now. Okay, so anyways, I keep trying to say what Ezra told me. Ezra said that when he picked up this laptop, it did not work. I don't remember what's wrong with it, but then the seller was really good and just sent a replacement one to Ezra and didn't even ask for this one back, which is awesome. And that's why it's here on my bench. So I guess we're gonna be looking at maybe the first Book 8088 repair video, if we can figure out what's wrong with it, of course. Now, how does this even charge? Okay, so look at that. The screen is working, and this looks very much like one of those commodity screens. In fact, I have a little VGA monitor here in the basement that has the same exact on-screen displays as this. So I'm assuming this thing is just like a hodgepodge of parts that are all hobbled together. And maybe this is connected, yeah, maybe this is connected to the motherboard just through like composite video, for all we know. I don't know. Or maybe there's an RGB to HDMI or something like that. The quality of the LCD is, well, not great. Not great at all. Now, what I'm curious about is, how does this thing even charge? Oh, I didn't even see this port here. What is this? Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's audio. That's not a charge port. Okay. Oh, there we go. So that's a regular DC input for charging. Okay, cool. Now, there was another box here. I bet this is a power supply or not. Yes. So I'm sure this power supply is of the utmost high quality. It looks like it is center positive, 12 volts, kind of hard to read. Topow is the brand. And yeah, I'm not so sure about the quality or safety of such a thing. Interesting how it's partially shielded there. I don't think I've really seen that much. I don't think I'm going to be using this because I have loads and loads of power supplies that, well, I mean, not so sure about this brand either. But this came bundled with like a Seagate hard drive, and I don't think that Seagate was necessarily going to send a bunch of crap power supplies with hard drives. So let's try this one. Meanwhile, this thing is still just sitting here kind of turning on and off while the screen is, and obviously it just says no signal. So let's pop this in like that. And I think these LEDs on the side here. All right, what's this saying? All right, so that's got to be a battery indicator, compact flash activity, so like a hard drive LED, and then CHG, charge. If we turn off the power switch on the side of this thing, then the battery icon or the toothpaste tube, that goes away, but the CHG stays on. It is super duper cold in Portland right now. My furnace just turned on. It should just turn off in a moment. And by cold, I think it's about 19 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I'll put what that is in Celsius. I don't really remember. It's below freezing though. And here in Portland, it doesn't normally get that cold. So old houses, especially like this one, is not designed for those types of cool temperatures. So it doesn't have a lot of insulation in the walls, meaning the furnace, which is natural gas. So luckily there's a lot of BTUs. It has a lot of capacity to heat the house. It just cycles more frequently when it's this cold outside. You may notice, actually, you probably can't see it, but see back here, the stairs, I have some sort of curtains there. And the reason for that is the heat in here is actually quite good because the vent there's like ducting and stuff there, and the heat runs and it heats up the basement. But then the cold air just goes into the stairwell there, which is kind of cold. So that half curtain, which is just a yellow towel that's attached, it just keeps a lot of the heat like up near the ceiling, and it keeps it from going up into the stairwell. It doesn't stop the cold air from there from coming down to my feet though. But luckily there's some fans down here and it circulates the air, and that's not a problem. So even with it being as cold as it is and the heat just cycling occasionally, and we're down in here in the basement, I can see the temperature is 72 degrees, which means it's nice and toasty down here. Anyhow, okay, so plugging this thing didn't really do anything. This thing is just doing this whole cycling thing. I'm assuming this is exactly what it did before as well. I think the idea will be, I want to make a repair video with this computer on the main channel, because that's kind of fun. That would be like the first repair video for these machines. But I might as well do the bare minimum and like just reseat the CPU, the BIOS chip, take this audio card out of here. You know, I could reseat this stuff here. We should just see if like those things make this thing work again, because if that's all there is to fix this, then that won't be much of a repair video on the main channel. So let me reseat everything on here. Let's see if that has any effect. If it does, then there won't be a repair video on the main channel. But if it doesn't, then there will be. Okay, so first off, let's get this OPL sound card out of here. I assume this is like on the ISA bus, essentially. So the reason why I'm taking this off is because since this is on probably the ISA bus, this could cause a problem if that thing is malfunctioning, and that could keep this thing from working. So let's just see if that makes any difference at all. By the way, while this is flickering here, I'm noticing that, is that the CGA adapter from Jim Leonard's CGA test compatibility suite? I think that is. I think that is. Or 8088 miles per hour, that demo, when it starts out, asks you to pick which CGA card you have, and I think it shows that rendition of the card. I can't believe it's just like stolen and put on a sticker. Okay, so that didn't make a difference taking that card out. That's good, because this is the little surface mount, difficult to replace component. Next up, let's take a look here at the CPU. Can I get this out? No, that doesn't really fit in there. How about the BIOS chip? No. Let's try one of the old school lifters, these things. I hate using these, but maybe this will get this thing out of here. There's just not a lot of space because of the case, though. But I'm sure I can get this CPU. Wow, it's really stuck in there. Okay, so we're gonna try this lifter instead, because you can get this under. Wow. Wow, it's so stuck in there. But I like this tool because you can kind of get around corners with it. There we go. Okay. I can use this lifter now. I wanted to swap the CPU out because this doesn't look like it's exactly authentic. I mean, that looks like a rebadge if I've ever seen it. Obviously, this is a real chip under here, but it's clearly been rebadged. Let's just grab the acetone. And let's see. So this thing was made from like parts found in the Shenzhen market, I'm sure. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. I mean, I order stuff from there all the time. But the quality is sometimes a little dubious. So this is acetone. Oh no, you know what? I don't know. I don't think this is a real part, or I think it's been rebadged. But usually it's been painted. I don't think this has been painted because it's not all coming off on the cotton bud there. So that's kind of cool. But something's happened to this thing, because those markings, that is just not the way that the real NEC parts look. 1994, this is like laser etched, and no, it would be printed on there with that white printing. I don't know, no, this doesn't look like what I expected to look like. And the reason why I say that is because here is another one. This is a real part, 1986, although I don't even know if this one is real, to be honest. But it's sitting off to the side here, and I have used it. Oh, let's look at the bottom on both of these. Okay, yeah. Why do these look so different then? And this has this weird like shininess that just looks suspect. Well, anyhow, let's try this one here that's sitting off to the side. What would be really cool if there was a way for me to get a post analyzer on this, although it is an XT, and XTs don't really support post analyzers. I assume, yeah, the notch goes towards the left. So we'll pop this in like so, hit the power button. I don't really expect this to do anything. Same old problem. My assumption is because it said no signal, when Ezra got this thing, probably Ezra tried swapping out this chip here. All right, next up, let's look at this BIOS chip here. That was not easy to get out just because there's so little clearance in this little trapdoor area. I managed to mangle up the pins a little bit. The idea here, so I'm going to put this in the EPROM programmer, and we're just going to kind of read to make sure that it is, I don't even know what the BIOS should look like, but we should have something on here that is totally readable. Because obviously without a BIOS chip in here, if we turn this computer on, you're not going to get anything. Trying to read what part number this chip is here. Okay, 27C512. Okay, so let's read this chip out and see what we see. All right, well, it's got XTIDE in there. All right. There's a whole lot of blank space in the middle there, but that's probably understandable. And at the bottom, we have December 20th, 2022 as the date. So let's take a look, see if we can find the BIOS. Here is one BIOS for the Intel 8088 based computer. And there it is, the BIOS image for the book 8088 with XTIDE optimized for the V20. Let's download this. It's 64 kilobytes, which is what we would expect. Let's go to the bottom here. All right, so it has a newer date, but it's probably just a newer version. I don't know, just for fun, I'm gonna load this newer version in and we're gonna flash this chip. Now the chip that's in here looks like it's ceramic, so I'd say that's like a real chip. So I don't think this is necessarily a bad chip. I just wanna eliminate that that's not gonna be a problem. So I'm gonna flash it onto this ST part here that Lawrence sent in on the last mail call episode. So we'll just hit program and let this thing do its thing. It's nice having actual chips that aren't rebadged because it actually checks the ID and it matches, and I don't have to try to fudge it. So I'm just gonna program it again. I think with these chips, it's probably fine. Looks like the programming voltage says it's 13 volts. Now what happens is occasionally the MiniPro is not the best programmer in the world, and especially if it's like a 2732 or something like that, programming it multiple times can actually make it work a little bit better in systems. I've had that exact problem on systems where they wouldn't post at all until I flashed the BIOS multiple times and then it started working. It usually happens with the older chips with a higher programming voltage, but you know, anything is possible, right? All right, that should be enough times. We did 4 times. So these chips have never been used, so their legs are all splayed out. So we'll put them in this chip leg fixer-upper thingamajiggy. And looking at the socket, the notch is towards the top. So I gotta make sure I get this in correctly because it's such a pain. All right, so let's see what happens when we turn this on now. No change at all. But what we're confirming here, and I'm just gonna grab a marker, so we can put a check mark on this, we can put a check mark on the CPU. This is just ruling out stuff I have to look at next time when we go to troubleshoot this thing. Okay, let's focus our attention to this video subsystem here. So my assumption is that both of these chips were tested. They look generally fine. None of the pins are bent on that one. Let's pop out this ROM chip here. And the pins are in kind of rough shape, but not terrible. Let's read this out. I don't know what this is. Wow, just getting this into the programmer is difficult because pins are so bent up. By the way, for straightening pins, I love these bent needle nose because A, I can really get in there and straighten a bunch of pins at once, but also this doesn't have that knurled texture, it's just flat, so it doesn't do anything to the pins on these ICs. So I have this set for 27C256. We'll read this out. My assumption is this is a character ROM. See these patterns here? They look very much like characters. Not sure why it has a 32K EPROM for simply characters. That's quite a lot, but it's certainly reading out correctly. I am curious if we turn this on without those chips on it, what happens exactly. Assume just exactly the same thing. No signal. Yeah. I'm just gonna pop this EPROM back in along with the CRT-C controller. Let's check this SRAM chip here. These are pretty easy to test. I think the MiniPro can actually test these. These chips are the same as cache memory chips on 486 motherboards, so they're pretty plentiful. You can find those chips all over the place. So here on the MiniPro software, we go to SRAM, and I guess it does not test them. Okay, well that's just easier for me to just pop a different one in. I can't actually imagine that a bad SRAM chip would cause this thing not to work at all. I'd figure it would actually initialize the screen and you would just get a bunch of garbage on it. I'm just gonna put the chips that I've taken off of this thing on the back of this foam here. So that's the SRAM I removed and the original BIOS chip. Okay, so new SRAM installed. These are clock generators here. We need to make sure that those are correctly installed and we don't have any bent pins. If you're having trouble lifting chips out, an O-ring puller like this little tool helps because it's pretty sharp and you can lift the chip up a little bit. And then you can get a tool under it like this one here. Get that out. Well, those pins are a mess. Check this out. Look how short those pins are. That's amazing. So a Harris 8284, and it says this is an 8284, so that is the right part. But again, I just want to make sure these are seated in there correctly. This one says 8288. That is definitely what this part is. I'm just going to try to straighten these out. I don't think this was the problem. These were obviously pulls from some other machine, which is fine. It means they were reused. This IC here, 8253, is like a programmable timer or interrupt controller or DMA controller or something along those lines. Other than the fact that this looks like a rebadge, everything looks completely fine. All right, everything is popped back in. Get exactly the same problem. Yep. It's funny how it says VGA. I have a feeling that this is using like an FPGA, CGA to VGA converter. There's some of those floating around if you look on eBay and stuff that are pretty inexpensive. That could be part of the problem too, is that whole section or component might be bad. If we look through here, you know, it could be one of these ICs or whatnot. I'm really tempted to open this thing up, but I'm going to leave that for the future repair. I don't know if I'll be able to get this thing fixed because there are some surface mount custom ICs here, but at least we could start checking around to see if we see the normal signals on the CPU, stuff like that. I'm going to leave my new BIOS chip and the CPU that I know works in there. I completely forgot, on the back edge, besides the power input, there is an ISA bus expansion here. I'm pretty sure people have already made connectors that go into here that give you a normal ISA connector. In fact, I have the PicoGus floating around somewhere. There are two versions of the PicoGus. One version that plugs into this for devices just like this. So if I didn't have this AdLib card, which is not reinstalled, I'll just leave that out for now. If I didn't have this, or I wanted to run Sound Blaster on this thing, the PicoGus can do that through this connector right here. I'm hopeful if I open this thing up and start probing around with the oscilloscope, that we can actually get to the bottom of what's not working on this thing and hopefully see where it's getting hung up. For now, I am going to stick this in this bag along with these original components here. And I'm going to close the lid on this for now until I have time to make a main channel video about it, trying to actually do a full repair on the Book 8088. So thank you very much, Ezra, for sending in these snacks and a broken Book 88 for us to take a look at and see if I can repair. Watch for a repair video on the main channel at some point in the future. Moving on to our next package to open here. This comes from Aaron in Genoa City, Wisconsin. Hi to all my Wisconsin viewers. Okay, looks like we have a little assortment of things here. There's some kind of a video card. We have some microfiber cloths as packing material, which is awesome because I use those all the time. I try to reduce the amount of paper towels I use for cleaning, and these things, which look brand new, are perfect because I can just throw them in the washing machine, which is what I do. Ah, and look what we have here. So what Aaron has sent over is a replacement television board with a new flyback or replacement flyback for a little Sony Trinitron TV. I had a video, I think it was on the second channel, might have been on the main channel, where I had a little 9-inch Sony Trinitron TV that did not power up properly. When you actually tried to turn that thing on, it would turn on for a second, kind of make a weird noise, and then just shut off immediately. I did a whole lot of testing, and I figured out, well, I think I figured out, that it was a bad flyback transformer. Now, Aaron had reached out to me and mentioned that he had this old TV, it was like a same model as this Trinitron TV, but it had been dropped. And he found it, I think, at e-waste. And the whole thing was just completely destroyed. But for whatever reason, he saved it. And well, the TV itself was way beyond saving. But Aaron thought that the board itself would actually benefit the repair of that little television and help us get to the bottom of exactly what was wrong with it. Now with this television here, it has this coily cord here. That was kind of the design of the thing. I think the white color television was designed to go in a kitchen or something like that. We have the main PCB. There is the original neck board right here. This is the ground strap for the CRT, and there is the flyback transformer. There's a little boot on here, which I can push back down onto the flyback, like so. Now it looks like this thing suffered a bit of damage here, unfortunately, in shipping. And here is the piece of the PCB, and take a look at this. Yep, the whole corner just sort of came right off. Now, luckily, this won't be impossible to fix. There are exactly, well, it looks like 2 traces here that have gone bad. Besides this broken corner, there's a crack in the PCB right here. So see, this whole part here is kind of loose as well. But the thing is, there aren't that many traces. Not like it broke over here in this area, which means it should be repairable. I can't remember if Aaron said that this thing worked or not. Worst case scenario, though, to try to fix the other TV is to remove the flyback, desolder it, and then just transfer it to the other board. I think that other board is fully functional. All the signals that we're generating look good, but I think the flyback on the other one was shorted. And I think that this flyback here might revive that other TV and make it work again. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that TV at the moment here in the basement, so I can't just do that swap quickly to see if that TV is working. So I think what I'm going to do is actually make a proper repair video for trying to fix that TV. And I really do want to do the flyback swap. So take this flyback off and take the flyback off the bad set. And I have something called a ring tester that should hopefully be able to tell us, potentially, if the flyback is shorted on the one that's not working. So we should be able to like measure the difference and actually see the problem. The ring tester is something that I didn't have when I originally did that video where I was troubleshooting that TV. That is something that Vince donated to me some point last year. So it's kind of funny. We have 2 items in a row now where I'm postponing the repair to a future time. But don't worry, I want to resolve whether this, whether that 9-inch Sony Trinitron can be fixed with these replacement parts, because that would be amazing considering that TV was completely smashed and too far gone to save. If its components, which I have now here in the basement, can save another one that is in good physical shape, then that is just a win-win. Now, Aaron also tucked in this video card here. Let's see what this is. Oh, ho, ho. Well, hello, mister. We have a 3DFX Voodoo card. Well, that is super, super duper kick ass. We have a CT6670, so a Creative Labs Voodoo card. And what kind of Voodoo card is this? I don't know. I don't really know Voodoo cards very well. Is this a Voodoo 1 or a Voodoo 2? Maybe I can figure that out by just looking at the card here. Creative Labs, 100 megahertz for the RAM. Things look to be, at first blush, in pretty good shape. Like I don't notice anything bent up or damaged or whatnot. Yes, that's pretty cool. Now, it's so funny that I just opened this up because just the other day, I was trying to get working a 3DFX Banshee card. Now, these 3DFX cards, if you're not familiar, they do not handle 2D graphics. They only handle 3D. And the reason why it has 2 VGA connectors on here is because there's a pass-through, and your regular 2D card passes through this card, and then this thing can like switch. When you go to play a 3D game, it actually switches over. And this does generate the video output, and you get the 3D graphics. But for 2D, it has to switch back to it. Well, the Banshee, I think the Banshee was 3DFX's attempt at their first combo card where it has 3DFX capabilities and it has 2D all in one. Now that Banshee card, I was playing around with it and I was not doing it on video, in case you were wondering if you missed a video. I don't do everything retro on video. Sometimes I'm just fooling around with stuff without making a video. The card works perfectly. Displays 2D, it's working fine. But I was trying to run some 3DFX games on it. Specifically, I was trying to run Grand Theft Auto, the very first version, and that supports 3DFX graphics to like really improve the graphics. You don't have that blocky 320 by 240, but you get high res like 800 by 600. Well, because I have no real experience with 3DFX cards, especially in DOS, it turns out you need these like DLL type files or OVL files that the games need to run the 3DFX graphics. And the problem is, and I didn't realize this, is that these cards, like whether this is probably, I think it's a Voodoo 2. I'm assuming this is a Voodoo 2 card. Maybe it's a Voodoo 1. I don't know. Either way, you just have those files in your path on your PC, and when you run the game, it finds the file and then it uses it. Well, it turns out that the Banshee cards are specifically fussy, and you can't just use that same file, the glide file from this card. You have to use the one for the Banshee card. Well, I did a bunch of reading on the forums, and there were people complaining about the fact that they were trying to get Banshee cards working and having all sorts of issues, and so was I. Once I found some Banshee OVL files, this glide OVL file, and I put it in my DOS directory, I'd run the Grand Theft Auto executable, the game would start up, you'd have like 2D graphics, but when it went to start the 3D, I'd just get a black screen and the game would freeze. Like, so I'd never see any 3D graphics. I tried a couple demos, DOS like demos, that were designed for 3DFX cards. One of them kind of worked, and I got this like 3DFX splash screen, and it started running for a second, and then it's kind of drew half the screen and then stopped as well. Maybe there's a problem with the Banshee card, but I don't think that's the case, because when I was reading on the forums, like people were complaining about these exact issues. The Banshee seems like a really fussy card. So I got frustrated and I was like, oh, screw this. I'm done fooling around with this 3DFX garbage. And then now a real card appears. Now, the reason why this has this connector on the top edge here is because this supports SLI, or scan line interleaving, where you can take two of these cards, you hook a ribbon cable between them, and then you get double the performance. So the first card only renders like the odd scan lines, and then the other card renders the even scan line, which theoretically doubles your performance. These cards were pretty expensive back in the day, and if you could afford one and then you bought a second one, you were a baller. So back then I did not have a 3D accelerator. The first 3D accelerator that I ever bought was an NEC Power VR accelerator. It was designed for Windows, and it plugged into your PCI slot. It didn't even have any video connectors at all. And what it did is it did 3D acceleration, and it would push the 3D graphics, the rendered graphics, into your main video card across the PCI bus. So of course that had a performance implication, but then you're able to add like a 3D accelerator to any 2D card and do it in a way that was pretty cost effective. That card worked okay. There were like some games, I think they were Sega games that were like ported to Windows that used that card. And I remember, you know, having 3D games and I was kind of impressed. But then, you know, turned out that it really wasn't that great of a card. And what, you know, this is where it was at, 3DFX cards, but I couldn't really afford these. So my next 3D card after that terrible Power VR card was a 3DFX card, but it wasn't this generation. I don't remember what it was called now, but it was the card that came out after the Banshee. Although, maybe it was a Banshee. I can't really remember now that I think about it, but I only recall it really working in Windows. It had built-in 2D and 3D, so it didn't have this pass-through thing going on. And I remember it having, you know, I think I played like Unreal on there, or if I recall, I think. Now I have to go look this up. So 3DFX, let's look at the Wikipedia article because it probably talks about which were the cards. Yeah, 3DFX Interactive. Oh, that's not what I needed. Okay, so the Diamond Monster 3D was the first, like the Voodoo 1 card. So that's that. That's not what we have here. And here's the Voodoo 2 card, which definitely looks exactly what this is. So see, it has these 3 main chips and a whole bunch of RAM. So even though this one's by STB and the card that's here that was sent to my Aaron is a Creative Labs card, they look identical. This is the SLI, that's that ribbon cable that connects two of the cards together. This is the key point right here. No other manufacturer's products could match the smooth frame rate that the Voodoo 2 produced. Yeah, it was unmatched. It was unbelievable. You could pop this into your PC and have such incredible high resolution, smooth gaming. You're talking about the Sony PlayStation, for instance, which had, you know, generally all the games ran at like 320 by 240 and had that weird, like, you know, blocky textures and dithering and all that stuff. This card, on the other hand, it could generate up to 800 by 600. It was pretty amazing. And then this is where it's talking about the Banshee. This was that card that I was trying to get working. And maybe that is the card that I had. I didn't have a Voodoo 3. Nope, that's not what I had. 4 and 5. No, I guess I had a Banshee. Yeah, I guess I had a Banshee. I don't think I had it for very long, though. It's so weird how there's like that, at the end of the 90s, into the 2000s, that whole time period is like vague for what I had. Like I remember having to sell around 300A, which I think I had a Banshee at the same time. I don't know if that coincides with the date, 1998. But my recollection is after the Banshee card, which had pretty good performance, although in some cases it was as fast as a Voodoo 2, but then in a lot of cases it wasn't. But that period of time was an incredible time for 3D acceleration because we went from having nothing to having something that was pretty good, and then all of a sudden the performance like improvements year after year was going like that. It's not like now where you have a video card from 8 years ago. Like if you have an NVIDIA GTX 1080 that came out in like what, 2016, that thing still works quite well. You can still play a lot of games on that and not top tier frame rates and 4K or whatever, but 1080p gaming is still quite possible. But at that point, if you had a 3D video card that was like 3 or 4 years old, I mean, you were left in the dust. I'm pretty sure that after I had that Voodoo Banshee card, which was okay of a card, I think I went to a GeForce 4MX. Let's look at when this came out. Yeah, it says it came out in 2002. Which does sort of make sense if I got that Banshee around 98, 99 time frame, and then 3DFX promptly kind of exploded at that point, or went bye-bye, and NVIDIA ended up buying them. I think the GeForce 4MX was the next card I got, and I paired that with Windows 2000. I was using Windows 2000 at the time, and I did plenty of gaming at that point on that card. And I think the GeForce 4MX I thought was a pretty good card. I think the MX version was definitely the entry level, as you can see right here, with like this TI 4600 and TI 4800 being the high-end cards. I just didn't have enough money to splash out that kind of cash on 3D cards because I was also a console gamer. Like I had a PlayStation 1 and then a PlayStation 2 and an Xbox. So I kind of did most gaming there. And the 3D acceleration on the PC was a little bit less important. Anyhow, I've definitely digressed there. We're going off on like talking about old GPUs and stuff. But Aaron, thank you very much for this this Voodoo 2 card. I'm gonna need to find some kind of a pass-through cable for this to get it working. Although now that I look at this, what I may end up doing is just removing the VGA connector on here and just putting on a standard one. So I'll have 2 female connectors, and then I could just use a regular VGA monitor cable. I know it's a bit longer than it needs to be to connect this to the video card. Because I am really looking forward to playing the original Grand Theft Auto on original hardware with 3D acceleration like with this card. So I was about to say that I was going to postpone testing this to a future time. But I think I'm actually going to test this thing out right now. I'm going to grab my Pentium system, we're going to plug this in, and I'm going to have to plug my 2D output to like a monitor and then plug the 3D output to the capture card since I don't have a pass-through cable right now. So let me grab that stuff because I have Grand Theft Auto installed on there and all ready to go, and maybe I can actually get this thing working. Maybe. All right, well, I've been fiddling around with this for like an hour and I can't get it working either. It's the same problem. It's so frustrating because people are like, you go to the forums, they're like, no, it works fine for me. And another person's like, nope, not working for me. And they're like, try this file, try that file. And the worst thing is that the software installers for this Creative Labs card, a CT6670, it's like an installer that requires Windows 95. I don't have Windows 95 on this machine. This is my DOS rig that I use for testing mainly. So I have no way to install the DOS driver or the Windows drivers to get that specific Glide 2X OVL file out of the installer, and I can't just unzip the installer. I've tried, that doesn't work. So I'm kind of stuck, and I just downloaded the demo version of this game that has the Glide file that's included, but people were like, oh, that's the Voodoo 1 Glide file. You know, like, I have to say, people don't realize how much of a pain all of this stuff was back then. When Windows 95 came along and 3D gaming moved to that was amazing. That solved so many issues because DOS gaming is difficult enough because of, the memory considerations. Of course, once 32-bit came around for DOS 4GW, which this game uses, that became a non-issue. But then this whole 3D Effect Voodoo Glide garbage is so frustrating, and I never went through it back in the day, so I don't remember any of it. And reading the forums, it's so wishy-washy with the posts and everything. I'm not going to show any posts. I don't want to call anyone out, but yeah, just lots of frustrating threads, and this is no different. So we run this, and I pick 3DFX, and this is the full version of the game, not just the demo. We get this little bit of a splash screen here. I am just plugged into my 2D accelerator here, not the 3D one, because I never actually got this to output anything from the 3DFX card. It is set up for Gravis ultrasound. I have the Pico Gus in here, so we have sound effects. So we hit play, but we're looking at 2D here, by the way. This is not, we're not there yet. So you can pick a character, Bubba, Liberty City, and now it loads, and either it goes to a black screen, or you get this. What 3DFX card, question mark. It couldn't just say 3DFX card not found. That'd be too much for an error. It just says, what card? So yeah, that's it. You can't play. Now, what I haven't tried doing, let's just exit out of this. I'm assuming that I could say, run this, and let's run high color. I'm using an ATI Rage XL video card, PCI, so maybe this will work. No, that just crashed. The above graphics card has been detected, but is not supported. SciTech drivers. Okay, so yeah, Mach 64. So why don't we just do not high color, low color, 256 colors. That should just work with everything, right? Right? Let's see. Let's see here. Maybe? Yeah, okay. Okay, here we go. We should see the game at least running. Okay, yeah, there it is. Yep, okay. I can, well, I haven't played this in so long. I can't remember how. How do I get into a car here? I don't know what keys to push here. I have to configure the keys. All right, anyways, I just turned that off. So I don't know if this card works or not. I'm assuming it does. The Banshee card behaved the same. I have a feeling I have viewers who are watching this right now who know exactly how to get this card working in DOS with Grand Theft Auto. If you have the right files, definitely can you point me to them? Tell me what I need to do to get this working, because I spent quite a bunch of time getting this working, and I would like to get that Voodoo Banshee working, to be honest. While I like this 2D, 3D card combo thing like in this card, I'd love to have the Banshee working, because I have another machine back there, the one I use regularly. I think I'd like to just put the Banshee in there all the time and keep it in there. The Banshee, by the way, is a Diamond Monster 3D card. I don't remember where I put it. It's somewhere in the basement here, but yeah, that's the card that is. Although maybe people recommend that I should stick with this card, which I think is a little bit faster than the Banshee, and then do the pass-through to another card that's in there. In fact, what I used to keep in that machine, believe it or not, was a TNT2, a Riva TNT2, which was the competitor to this card. It's an AGP card. It doesn't have any DOS support, so any glide-based DOS games. And there are, oh, let me see, I found this matrix. I found this handy matrix while I was looking around to try to get this card working, and it lists all the DOS games that are glide-based and tells you whether it works on the Voodoo 2 or not. Some of them don't, some crash, like Descent 2. Some have patches that you need to apply. I don't know where you get those patches. It says like this is an original patch there, and there's a Voodoo 2 patch. But I just want to mention, if we look at Grand Theft Auto, it does work on the Voodoo 2 out of the box. Batch file required, no. So I don't know, maybe batch file means there's like some command line arguments you need to get it to work. Retail, which I think is the version that I'm using, and it does support 800 by 600 on the Voodoo 2 and SLI. Now, there's a Grand Theft Auto for Windows, and I'm pretty sure that that version also supports 3DFX card directly, and people seem to indicate that that one is really easy to get working, because once you just have Windows 95 running, you have the drivers installed, and you're pretty much good to go. So I'm assuming if I put the Banshee card in that computer, which does have Windows 95 on it, and I get the Banshee drivers installed like the original Diamond Monster ones, everything should just work. I just wanted to try to experience what a DOS 3DFX glide game was like. And yeah, so far I've been stymied at every freaking turn. So yeah, if anyone has tips and pointers on how to get this card working in DOS with Grand Theft Auto, I would be very happy, because I just want to sit down and really get some good playtime in on that game, because I really do like that game and I want to test it out. Anyhow, thanks again, Aaron, for sending in that stuff, and thank you, Ezra, for sending in that book 8088. I think I'm going to end this video here. So it's a video where I pretty much did nothing except just look at stuff, did some troubleshooting, and then tried to get a 3DFX card working unsuccessfully. So I literally did nothing in this video that actually worked. So if you enjoyed that, thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Huge thanks to my patrons. Their names are going up the side of the screen. They get early access to videos and stuff like that. In fact, you know, occasionally if I'm doing funny testing like on this card or the Voodoo Banshee, I didn't this time, but sometimes I'll record a little behind the scenes stuff and I'll upload that to the patrons and they get to see that stuff, the higher tiers that is on Patreon. So anyhow, that is going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.